Beneath the surface of our everyday world lies a hidden tapestry of surreal beauty. Places that defy logic, challenge perception, and seem to belong not to Earth, but to the vivid dreams of another realm entirely. This journey isn't about fantasy or fiction. It's about real locations that feel unreal, landscapes sculpted by time, by water, by fire, and by forces far older than human memory. From Bolivia's mirror-like salt flats to China's rainbow-hued mountains, from glowing caves in New Zealand to pink lakes in Australia, we venture across continents and climates to uncover the most otherworldly places on the planet. This is more than travel, it's a descent into wonder. So settle in, as we take you on an immersive exploration through Earth's most mind-bending, heart-stopping, and truly unreal destinations. But before we continue, subscribe to the channel and like the video. High above the Andes, tucked into the high-altitude Altiplano of southwestern Bolivia, lies a place so vast, so white, and so incomprehensibly surreal that even the most seasoned travelers often fall silent upon arrival. Salar de Uyuni, the largest salt flat on Earth, stretches over 10,000 square kilometers in an otherworldly expanse of gleaming, hexagon-cracked crust, so perfectly flat that it serves as a reference point for satellite altimeters. But it's not merely the size or symmetry that gives Salar de Uyuni its mythical aura. It's the way the landscape morphs with the seasons, most notably during the rainy months between December and April, when a thin sheet of rainwater covers the plain, transforming the salt flat into a flawless mirror of the sky. Here, the horizon vanishes, and you walk not on Earth, but seemingly across the heavens. To step into Salar de Uyuni during this mirrored season is to dissolve the boundary between sky and ground. The clouds drift below your feet, your reflection becomes a ghost-like double, and the sun floats in twin above and below you. It's as if nature has momentarily peeled away the Earth's surface to reveal a celestial dimension underneath. Even during the dry season, the visual purity is astonishing, endless white stretching in every direction, marked only by the occasional salt mound harvested by locals, or the distant silhouette of Isla Inca Huazi, a cactus-studded island of ancient coral rising from the salt like a marooned ship in a snow sea. Formed by the evaporation of prehistoric lakes, particularly the ancient Lake Minchin, Salar de Uyuni is layered with sodium chloride, lithium, potassium, and borax, a crust atop a briny, mineral-rich soup beneath. This makes it not just a visual marvel but also one of the most valuable mineral reserves in the world, holding more than half the planet's lithium. Despite this economic significance, the flat remains largely untouched in many areas, protected by its remoteness and the awe it inspires. Even NASA uses the surface for calibrating satellite instruments due to its incredible uniformity. But Salar de Uyuni is more than salt and spectacle. It's an ecosystem, albeit a sparse and extreme one. Flamingos arrive in flocks during the breeding season, adding bursts of delicate pink to the white infinity. These birds, especially the rare James's flamingo, create a paradox: fragile life thriving atop ancient salt and alkaline pools, dancing amid the shallow waters under the sky's reflection. Perhaps the most unreal sensation occurs at twilight, when the flamingos wade in still waters turned golden by the setting sun. The line between land and air erases entirely. You may look around and not distinguish where the world ends or begins. Even at night, Salar de Uyuni becomes a stage for the stars, with constellations mirrored beneath your feet. The Milky Way, arcing overhead, seems to fall into your shoes. The Salt Hotel on the edge of the flats, built entirely from blocks of salt, further adds to the surreal experience. Walls, beds, chairs, all salt. Travelers rest inside a building composed of the very ground they walked upon, immersed in the landscape as both guests and temporary inhabitants of something eternal and alien. This ethereal canvas becomes, for many, a personal reckoning. It is a place that strips away noise, distraction, and even direction. Here, time dilates, perception dissolves, and one's presence feels infinitesimally small yet intimately connected to the vastness of nature. Salar de Uyuni isn't just a sight to behold, it's a confrontation with the infinite. It reminds us that even on Earth, there are places that challenge the very notion of Earth itself. Nestled in southwestern Turkey, in the ancient region of Phrygia, lies a site so enchanting that its name literally translates to Cotton Castle, Pamukkale. From a distance, it appears as if a glacier or a snow-covered mountainside has descended into the warm Mediterranean landscape. But upon closer approach, the illusion gives way to something even more fantastical. A cascading series of terrace pools, gleaming in hues of pure white and glowing sky blue, formed over thousands of years by the gentle outpouring of mineral-rich thermal waters. These terraces, known as travertines, are not made of snow, but of solidified calcium carbonate, deposited like icing sugar on the hillside, layer by layer, year by year. Pamukale is, in essence, the physical manifestation of time, heat, and water in harmony. The process begins with geothermal springs high in calcium and carbon dioxide. As the hot water reaches the surface and flows down the hillside, it cools and releases the gas, causing the calcium to precipitate out of solution. What remains is a glistening white shell of calcite, slowly building up into scalloped basins, ridges, and bluffs. Over centuries, this process has created the surreal cascade of shallow, semicircular pools that cling to the cliff face, some no deeper than a bathtub, others resembling wide, shallow bowls that overflow into one another like steps on a celestial staircase. These terraces shimmer in the sun, especially during the golden hours of morning and evening, when the sunlight glows soft and warm, reflecting off the white surfaces and turning the turquoise water into a painter's palette of pastels. The blue, green, and white layers merge in patterns that seem too perfect to be natural. The contrast between the travertines and the rugged, dry hills beyond only enhances the dreamlike appearance, as if Pamukale were a fragment of another realm accidentally dropped into Anatolia. But Pamukale is not just a natural wonder, it is also steeped in human history and mythology. Just above the travertine terraces lies the ancient Greco-Roman city of Hierapolis, once a bustling spa town for Roman elites who believed in the healing powers of the thermal springs. Founded in the 2nd century BCE, Hierapolis became a center of culture, religion, and medicine. Today, its well-preserved ruins still whisper the stories of emperors, poets, and priests who walked the marble streets, bathed in sacred waters, and performed rituals in temples. One of the most evocative sights within Hierapolis is the antique pool, also known as Cleopatra's Pool. Legend has it that Mark Antony gifted the pool to Cleopatra, and that she herself bathed in its mineral-rich waters. Even today, visitors float among submerged columns and sunken marble blocks, remnants of an ancient colonnade toppled by an earthquake long ago. The sensation of swimming over ruins adds an uncanny, almost mythological dimension to the experience, a convergence of past and present, body and stone. Pamukale's healing properties continue to draw visitors from all over the world. The thermal waters, rich in bicarbonate, sulfate, and calcium, are said to aid in everything from skin conditions to rheumatism. But what brings people back again and again isn't just the hope of healing, it's the otherworldly beauty, the way the landscape defies all expectations of what Earth can look like. Walking barefoot on the travertines, feeling the warmth of the flowing water and the softness of the mineral deposits underfoot, is a full sensory immersion into one of nature's most delicate and miraculous architectures. At night, the terraces take on a different personality. Under moonlight, the pools glisten like liquid silver, and the whole structure seems frozen in some magical state between solid and fluid. The silence here is profound, interrupted only by the trickling of water, a timeless sound that has shaped this landscape for millennia. Some say the place holds a unique energy, a kind of peace that sinks into your bones. Pamukale has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1988, but its future has not always been certain. Decades of tourism took a toll on the travertines, with hotels built directly on the site and uncontrolled access damaging the fragile formations. Thankfully, in recent years, efforts have been made to restore and protect this natural treasure. Visitors now walk barefoot in designated areas, hotels have been relocated, and the flow of thermal water is carefully managed to preserve the terrace's integrity. Still, despite human pressure, Pamukale endures. It glows in the sun, shines in the rain, and sparkles under the stars. It is a place where geology becomes sculpture, where chemistry becomes artistry, and where time is written in terraces. To stand before Pamukale is to be reminded that the earth, left to its own quiet devices, can create beauty far greater than any monument or cathedral, a cotton castle woven not from stone, but from the patient hands of heat, water, and time. Hidden in the arid folds of northwestern China's Gansu province, the Zhangye Danxia landform is one of those rare geological marvels that seems to have leapt straight out of a painter's imagination. Here, in the foothills of the Chilean mountains, entire mountain ranges ripple across the horizon in undulating bands of red, yellow, orange, green, and blue, like colossal strokes on a natural canvas brushed with surrealism. From a distance, the ridges appear almost artificial, as if sculpted and dyed by the hands of giants or designed for a fantastical dreamscape in an epic film. But these multicolored mountains are entirely real, the result of millions of years of geological layering, tectonic uplift, and patient erosion. The Zhangye Danxia, now a protected geopark and a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is the most iconic example of China's Danxia landforms, a term that refers broadly to red-colored sandstones and conglomerates formed in dry environments. What makes Zhangye unique is not only the rich palette of colors in its strata, but also the stunning scale and intricacy of the formations. The rainbow effect, a phenomenon of both beauty and science, comes from sedimentary rock layers deposited over 24 million years, originally beneath ancient lakes and riverbeds. Each layer represents a different mineral composition and period in time, pressed together and later exposed by the relentless movement of tectonic plates. Over eons, wind and rain sculpted the terrain into jagged ridges, deep gullies, sloping valleys, and natural towers. These forms catch the light in a way that seems to shift throughout the day. At sunrise and sunset, the slanted golden light turns the hills into fire, accentuating the crimson and amber tones. Under the mid-afternoon sun, the full spectrum of hues becomes visible, with chalky whites, sea greens, rusty browns, and dusty purples weaving in and out of one another like layers in a marble cake baked by the earth itself. The most dramatic part of the park is known as the Seven-Color Mountain, where the striping is especially vivid and sharply defined. The geological bands flow along the contours of the terrain, creating a topography that looks like it belongs on another planet. Some hills look like frozen waves of color, others rise like spines from some long-extinct dragon buried beneath the land. There are outcrops with nicknames like the Colorful Slope, Monk-worshipping Buddha, and Rainbow Ridges, each offering panoramic viewpoints that seem to defy logic. Despite the surreal beauty, the region is mostly dry and sparsely vegetated, which only enhances the starkness of the landscape. The lack of plant cover allows the natural rock colors to shine through unobstructed, giving Zhangye Danxia an almost hyperreal clarity. But this starkness belies a delicate balance. The formations are fragile and prone to erosion. The park authorities have taken care to build elevated walkways and observation platforms, allowing visitors to take in the sights without damaging the formations underfoot. While these human-made paths may seem like intrusions in such a natural masterpiece, they are a necessary compromise to ensure preservation. Local law and cultural interpretation play a role in the fascination with the landform as well. Some legends say that the mountains were painted by gods who spilled their palette upon the earth. Others say a divine rainbow shattered here, embedding itself into the rocks. The spiritual connection is real. Many believe the landform has energy, a kind of silent wisdom written in the rock layers that span epochs, from the dinosaurs that once roamed this terrain to the early humans who gazed upon the hills in or just as we do today. The surrounding area, including the city of Zhangye, was once a crucial post along the ancient Silk Road. As traders and pilgrims crossed the deserts of Central Asia en route to China's heartland, the sight of the painted mountains must have seemed like a vision after miles of dust and heat. Even Marco Polo is said to have passed through nearby, though whether he glimpsed the Danxia formations themselves is a matter of debate. Regardless, the region still bears that same aura of discovery, a reminder that even after centuries of exploration, Earth continues to surprise us with places that border on the unbelievable. Today, drone footage of Zhangye Danxia circulates widely across the internet, drawing gasps from viewers who often question whether the images have been digitally altered. But they haven't. The reality of the Rainbow Mountains stands as proof that the planet is capable of creating art far grander and more vivid than anything our species can manufacture. It's a place where time, pressure, and sediment have produced a masterpiece without a single brushstroke from human hands. To witness Zhangye Danxia in person is to stand at the intersection of geology and imagination. It's not just a mountain range, it's a chronicle of time written in color, a symphony in stone, a living mural that reminds us the Earth itself is the greatest artist of all. No photograph, no video, and no virtual experience can replicate the sensation of standing there, with the cool wind rising off the slopes and the sunlight pouring down in waves, casting shadows that dance across the layered ridges like brushstrokes still in motion. Far in the northeastern corner of South America, straddling the tri-border region of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, rises one of the most enigmatic and ancient formations on Earth, Mount Roraima. Like a monolithic fortress carved by celestial hands, this immense tabletop mountain, or tepui, pierces the tropical mist with sheer cliffs that rise abruptly over 400 meters, 1,300 feet, from the rainforest floor, culminating in a summit plateau that stretches for more than 30 square kilometers. The visual impact is immediate and unforgettable. A colossal, flat-topped behemoth, eternally wreathed in swirling clouds, standing solitary in a sea of dense green jungle. It is no wonder that this primeval place became the inspiration for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's 1912 novel The Lost World, a place where prehistoric creatures might still roam and the laws of time itself appear suspended. Mount Roraima is not merely visually arresting, it is also a geological relic from Earth's earliest days. Part of the Guiana Shield, the mountain is composed primarily of quartzite and sandstone that dates back nearly 2 billion years, making it one of the oldest geological formations on the planet. The Tepui's unique structure, a steep-sided mesa with a flat summit, was sculpted over eons by erosion, isolated from the surrounding landscape and ecosystems. This isolation has turned Mount Roraima into a sort of island in the sky, harboring flora and fauna found nowhere else on Earth. Evolution here has followed its own rules, leading to species that seem to belong to an entirely different epoch. As you approach Mount Roraima, typically from the Gran Sabana region in Venezuela, the mountain appears to shift with the light, sometimes stark and ominous under storm clouds, other times shimmering in the morning sun like a golden altar. The base is cloaked in rainforest, but the higher you climb, the more surreal the landscape becomes. Reaching the summit, after several days of trekking through dense jungle, open savanna, and steep inclines, is like stepping onto another planet. The top of Mount Roraima is a labyrinth of blackened stone fields, scattered with rock formations eroded into bizarre shapes. Mushrooms, turtles, ancient temples, and broken sculptures. Pools of rainwater collect in shallow basins, some reflecting the sky like mirrors, others tinted black by organic matter, making them appear bottomless. Carnivorous plants like pitcher plants and sundews thrive in this nutrient-poor environment, devouring insects with alien-like elegance. There are frogs and other amphibians that exist nowhere else, including the Roraima bush toad, a tiny, rubbery-looking creature that doesn't hop but walks slowly among the rocks like a character in a dream. Despite the barrenness, the summit is not lifeless. Mosses and delicate flowering plants creep along the crevices, their roots tapping into the sparse moisture collected from nearly constant fog and rainfall. Waterfalls tumble from the cliff edges, some among the highest in the world, their streams disappearing into mist before they ever touch the jungle below. The air is cold, often windswept, and carries a weight, a silence, that feels profound and ancient. Indigenous peoples, particularly the Pemen and Kapon tribes, have long revered Mount Roraima. In their cosmology, the Tepus are the stumps of a mighty tree that once held all the fruits of the world, and Roraima was the tallest and most sacred. According to one legend, the mountain was toppled by a mythical figure named Markunaima, scattering life across the earth. Even today, many local guides speak of the summit with a quiet reverence, cautioning that it is a place of spirits, powerful, unpredictable, and not to be disrespected. Accessing Mount Roraima is not for the casual traveler. The journey requires commitment, a multi-day hike through rugged terrain, often under unpredictable weather. But those who make the pilgrimage are rewarded with a sensory and spiritual encounter unlike anything else on Earth. As you camp atop the plateau, surrounded by fog and alien rock formations, the rest of the world seems to fall away. There is no light pollution here, and on a clear night, the sky explodes with stars. The Milky Way arcs above the dark edges of the mountain like a celestial canopy, and the silence is absolute, save for the occasional drip of water or the distant moan of wind against stone. For scientists, Mount Roraima is a living laboratory, offering insights into evolutionary biology, botany, and geology. For writers, poets, and artists, it is a wellspring of inspiration, a symbol of the untouched, the unknowable, the primeval. For adventurers, it is a challenge and a gift. And for all who witness it, Roraima remains one of Earth's true enigmas, a relic of time before time, a monument sculpted not by hands, but by epochs, weather, and the long, slow dreaming of the planet. To stand on the summit of Mount Roraima is to peer into the deep memory of the Earth itself. It is to find yourself suspended between sky and stone, life and legend. The mountain doesn't just rise from the jungle, it rises from the imagination, from the realm of things half believed and half seen, the mythic heart of a continent that still holds secrets far older than humanity. Far from the familiar contours of the modern world, in the shimmering waters of the Arabian Sea just off the Horn of Africa, lies a place so bafflingly surreal that it often seems to defy the very laws of earthly evolution. This is Socotra Island, a craggy, sun-drenched landmass belonging to Yemen, yet appearing more like a fragment of an alien planet dropped gently into the Indian Ocean. Isolated from the mainland for nearly 7 million years, Socotra has evolved in botanical solitude, becoming a living laboratory of endemism. Here, life took a different path. Over 1/3 of the island's plant species are found nowhere else on Earth, and the landscape is dominated by the gnarled silhouettes of the island's most iconic resident, the dragon blood tree. With thick, twisted trunks and umbrella-like crowns that stretch wide and flat across the sky, the dragon blood tree, Dracaena cinnabari, is the undisputed symbol of Socotra and an icon of evolutionary defiance. It looks like a fusion of mushroom, bonsai, and thundercloud, each tree a living sculpture hewn from time and strangeness. Named for the crimson resin that oozes from its bark when cut, the dragon blood tree has long been associated with mystical properties. Ancient civilizations, from the Greeks to the Egyptians, used the resin in medicine, dye, incense, and even alchemy. On the island itself, it is revered not just for its medicinal and economic value, but for its sheer, haunting presence. When seen en masse, standing in the fog-draped highlands of the Dixon Plateau, the trees create a skyline of unearthly forms, their canopies filtering the light in fractured, geometric patterns. Yet Socotra's wonders do not end with one tree. The entire island is a trove of botanical and zoological anomalies. The Socotran desert rose, Adenium obesum socotranum, blooms with vivid pink petals atop a thick, swollen trunk that resembles an elephant's leg. Its appearance is somewhere between whimsical and monstrous, a product of necessity, storing water in a parched, windswept environment that punishes the unadapted. Meanwhile, the island's cucumber tree, Dendrocysio socotranus, the only known tree in the cucumber family, sprouts with fat, pale trunks and sparse tufts of green, like something out of a Dr. Seuss illustration. The terrain these creatures call home is as diverse as their shapes. Socotra boasts limestone plateaus, towering granite peaks, windscraped dunes, narrow coastal plains, and hidden valleys. The Hadibo Plain, near the island's largest settlement, gives way to jagged mountains that seem lifted from a fantasy epic. Inland, sinkholes open into limestone caverns filled with stalactites and underground streams. Along the coast, white sand beaches cradle turquoise lagoons while salt flats shimmer under the desert sun. This clash of topographies creates isolated microclimates, which in turn allow unique ecosystems to flourish in close proximity. One valley may be arid and spare, while the next bursts with greenery fed by seasonal monsoon rains. Socotra's skies are alive as well. Over 200 species of birds have been recorded here, including endemic species like the Socotra starling, Socotra sunbird, and Socotra warbler. Reptiles are equally abundant, with many lizards and geckos found nowhere else on the planet. Insects too are hyperdiverse: bees, butterflies, and beetles that evolved independently on this windswept rock in the sea. Despite its ecological importance, Socotra's human history is ancient and deeply entwined with the land. For centuries, the island was known as a source of myrrh, frankincense, and dragon blood resin, all prized commodities along ancient trade routes. Its name appears in Greco-Roman texts, and it is believed that Socotra may have served as a way station for sailors navigating between Africa, Arabia, and the Indian subcontinent. Arabic, Somali, and Indian cultural influences can still be felt in the island's language, architecture, and oral traditions. The Socotri people speak a South Arabian language that predates Arabic itself, preserving ancient linguistic threads from the region's pre-Islamic past. Yet life on Socotra is far from easy. Harsh winds known as the Kharif blow across the island from May to September, bringing monsoon rains and isolating Socotra from the outside world for weeks at a time. In more recent decades, political instability in Yemen has left the island vulnerable, both in terms of governance and conservation. Foreign powers have taken interest in its strategic location, and concerns have arisen about the ecological pressures of unregulated development and tourism. Still, Socotra remains, for now, miraculously preserved. Visiting the island is like stepping backward through geological time into a dreamscape of evolutionary whimsy. There are no cities here, only villages built from stone and coral, where goats and camels roam freely through alleys and hillsides. The people live with an intimate knowledge of their land, gathering wild herbs, harvesting resin, and fishing the teeming coastal waters. Hospitality is sacred. Life is simple, but it beats in rhythm with the wind, the trees, and the shifting tides. As you walk through Socotra's highlands, with dragon blood trees casting lace-like shadows on sun-bleached rock, or sit in the quiet dusk listening to the rhythmic call of native birds, it becomes easy to understand why this island has captured the imagination of naturalists and poets alike. There are places on Earth that feel borrowed from fiction, and Socotra is one of them. A realm where flora twists into unnatural forms, where isolation has preserved a mirror of ancient life, and where each new corner reveals a form of beauty never before imagined. To behold Socotra is to realize that Earth still holds mysteries that lie far outside our expectations. Places untouched by the ordinary, shaped by forces older than history, and rich with life that thrives on the edge of the believable. Beneath the blazing desert sun of northern Arizona, hidden within the high, dry lands of the Navajo Nation near Page, lies a slender passageway carved not by human hands, but by millennia of wind, sand, and sudden floods. This is Antelope Canyon, one of the most breathtaking and spiritually resonant slot canyons on Earth. Stepping into its narrow entrance is like slipping into a geological cathedral sculpted by the elements. The moment you descend into its depths, the noise of the world above fades away, replaced by the hushed stillness of cool stone corridors that glow with a surreal inner light. Antelope Canyon is divided into two main sections. Upper Antelope Canyon, known to the Navajo people as Tse Biganalini, the place where water runs through rocks, and Lower Antelope Canyon, called Hasdestwazi, spiral rock arches. Both are narrow fissures in the sandstone landscape, formed by flash flooding that rages through the canyon after monsoon rains. Over millions of years, these powerful surges sculpted the walls into flowing, wave-like forms, curves, alcoves, and undulating surfaces that seem to ripple like water frozen in time. Each turn reveals another stretch of impossible beauty. Tall, smooth walls that seem to shimmer with movement even as they stand utterly still. The walls themselves are not simply rock, they are light and shadow, warmth and depth. Depending on the time of day, the sun's rays descend into the canyon in vertical shafts, illuminating the dust in the air and making the light itself seem solid. These sunbeams, especially prominent in Upper Antelope Canyon between late morning and early afternoon during the summer months, create one of the most iconic and mystical spectacles in nature. The beams strike the canyon floor with near-divine focus, turning the space into a temple of light. Photographers from all over the globe come here to capture that fleeting, silent moment when the canyon becomes a chamber of living fire and gold. But even without the sunbeams, the experience is no less transcendent. The walls of Antelope Canyon display an astonishing palette of colors: rich ochres, deep maroons, fiery oranges, lavender purples, and even hints of pale pink and indigo. These tones shift subtly as the sunlight moves, transforming the canyon minute by minute. To walk through Antelope is to watch a natural light show performed by rock and sky. No two visits are the same. No single image can do justice to the depth, the movement, or the scale of the place. The canyon's narrowness adds to its power. At points, the walls are so close you can touch both sides at once, yet they tower as much as 120 feet overhead. The sense of enclosure is not claustrophobic, but sacred, as though you are walking through the ribcage of the earth itself. You are held by the land, enveloped by ancient forces. Every step forward takes you deeper into this subterranean dreamscape, where the air is cooler, the shadows richer, and the sound of your breath more present than anywhere else. Antelope Canyon is not just a natural wonder, it is also a place of cultural and spiritual significance to the Navajo people. The Navajo have long considered the canyon a sacred space, a place of reflection, prayer, and connection with the natural world. The patterns on the walls are read like petroglyphs, not drawn by human hands, but inscribed by time and the elements. Each contour is a story, each striation a memory, stretching back through the ages. Visitors who come here with humility and awareness often speak of a deep stillness, an inner quiet that descends as surely as the light itself. However, this natural sculpture is also a reminder of the Earth's unpredictable power. Though the canyon appears serene, it was created, and continues to be shaped, by sudden, ferocious flash floods. Even on dry days, the potential for a wall of water to surge through the narrow corridors remains real, and tragic incidents in the past have underscored the need for respect and caution. Today, guided tours are mandatory, not only to protect visitors but to preserve the fragile environment of the canyon. Navajo guides, many of whom have ancestral ties to the land, offer insight not just into geology and history, but into the canyon's deeper meaning. In Lower Antelope Canyon, the journey requires more physical exertion, descending metal staircases, navigating narrow bends, crouching under rock ledges. But the reward is just as extraordinary. Light dances differently here, tracing thinner threads through the rock, flickering across the surface in delicate motion. The walls here twist more tightly, and the sense of discovery is more intimate. You don't just see the canyon, you inhabit it, winding your way through a sandstone maze that seems to move and breathe with each step you take. To visit Antelope Canyon is to engage with the ancient artistry of water, time, and stone. It's to witness what happens when nature is left to dream undisturbed for eons. The canyon's beauty is ephemeral. It changes with every second, every sunbeam, every shifting grain of sand in the wind, and yet, in its timeless stillness, it endures. It's a place that humbles the senses, silences the mind, and awakens something wordless within the soul. In the modern world, shaped by straight lines and predictable forms, Antelope Canyon stands as a swirling reminder that beauty often emerges from chaos, that fluidity leaves the deepest marks, and that even in the driest corners of the desert, water can write poetry in stone. In the remote and hauntingly beautiful Rift Valley of northern Tanzania, near the border with Kenya, lies one of Earth's most unsettling yet mesmerizing natural spectacles, Lake Natron. A vast, shallow body of water stretching over 50 kilometers in length, this lake looks more like the surface of a distant alien planet than anything one might expect to find beneath the African sun. It shimmers red, orange, and sometimes crimson-black, with swirls of white and silvery gray crusting its edges. Its waters are caustic, its air is searing, and its secrets lie in the haunting beauty that comes from deadly chemistry. This is not a place of gentle reflection, but of raw, elemental confrontation. It is where life flirts with death, and sometimes turns into stone. Lake Natron's blood-red hue is not an illusion or trick of the light. It is the result of extreme conditions and resilient organisms. The lake sits in a tectonic basin and is fed by mineral-rich hot springs and seasonal rainfall. Because it has no outlet, evaporation is the only escape for its waters, causing a continual buildup of salt, sodium carbonate, and other alkaline compounds. The result is a hypersaline and highly alkaline environment, with pH levels that can exceed 10.5, as caustic as ammonia, and temperatures that often soar above 40 degrees Celsius 104 degrees Fahrenheit. In this extreme crucible of water and minerals, most life would perish instantly. But certain microorganisms, especially halophilic, salt-loving, bacteria and cyanobacteria, thrive. These microorganisms are not only immune to the lake's chemical wrath but flourish in it, producing reddish pigments that tint the water. Depending on the season, the salinity, and the specific blooms of these organisms, the lake's surface can range from pale orange to deep vermilion, to rust brown or violet. The edges, meanwhile, crust over with salt and soda deposits that dry into cracking patterns resembling the skin of some great primeval beast. The eeriest element of Lake Natron, however, lies not in its colors, but in the fate of those who enter it. The lake has become infamous for its tendency to calcify animals, particularly birds and small mammals, that fall into its waters and cannot escape. The intense alkalinity causes the tissues to decay rapidly, and the mineral-rich environment preserves the bodies in grotesque, statue-like forms. These creatures are not literally turned to stone, but they become desiccated, hardened, and coated in soda and salt crystals that give them a petrified appearance. Wildlife photographer Nick Brandt famously documented these mummified animals, birds frozen mid-flight or gazing silently from the lake's crusted shores, transformed into eerie relics of stillness. Despite its hellish reputation, Lake Natron is far from lifeless. In fact, it is one of the most important breeding grounds on Earth for the lesser flamingo, Phoenicanaeus minor. These delicate pink birds depend almost entirely on saline lakes like Natron for survival. Here, the flamingos find isolation from predators and nourishment from the cyanobacteria that thrive in the harsh water. During the breeding season, tens of thousands of them gather to nest on the lake's crusted islets, dancing on the glassy red surface in an otherworldly ballet. From above, the scene is staggering, a sea of pink specks moving through a red and white expanse, as if brushstrokes from a surrealist painting had come to life. Beyond the flamingos, other forms of life persist around the lake's periphery. Hardy tilapia fish survive in the less extreme regions fed by freshwater springs, while lesser-known species of algae and invertebrates eke out an existence in the margins. The surrounding terrain, rocky escarpments, dry plains, and volcanic hills, adds to the post-apocalyptic aura of the region. Dominating the northern skyline is Old Doinyo Langai, the Mountain of God, a still-active volcano sacred to the Maasai people. This volcano is unique in its own right, producing a rare type of lava called natrocarbonatite, which is extremely fluid and low in temperature. The ash and minerals from this volcano help feed the chemistry of the lake, linking fire and water in a delicate, deadly balance. For the Maasai and other indigenous peoples, Lake Natron is not simply a dangerous curiosity, it is a place of myth and meaning. They speak of it with reverence and caution, viewing it as both life-giver and life-taker, sacred yet treacherous. The flamingos, so bold in color yet so fragile, are seen as a gift and a mystery, a contradiction born of the land's paradoxes. Scientific interest in the lake is growing, particularly among astrobiologists who study it as an Earth analogue for extreme environments elsewhere in the solar system. The presence of thriving microbial life in such an inhospitable habitat has implications for what life might look like on Mars, Europa, or Titan. In this way, Lake Natron is not only a window into Earth's own diversity and resilience but also a mirror held up to the cosmos, asking what forms life might take under the most unlikely conditions. Visiting Lake Natron is not a casual endeavor. It requires endurance, respect, and preparation. There are no luxury resorts here, no manicured trails. The air is hot and alkaline, the ground sharp and crusted, and the water a chemical soup that demands distance. Yet, for those who venture here, the reward is a visceral sense of the raw power of nature. The lake is not beautiful in the traditional sense, it is stark, unsettling, and mesmerizing in equal measure. It does not charm so much as command attention. It strips away human expectation and replaces it with something deeper, or tinged with fear, and respect for life's ability to endure even at the edge of the impossible. To stand at the shores of Lake Natron is to confront the sublime, not in softness or serenity, but in strangeness and danger. It is a place where death becomes art, where the colors of life come from the mechanisms of survival, and where nature writes its most cryptic verses in salt and flame. Beneath the icy skin of Iceland's largest glacier, hidden in the ever-shifting mass of ancient ice, lies a hidden world that looks as though it were carved from frozen light itself. The Vatnajökull ice caves, concealed within the depths of the Vatnajökull glacier, offer one of the most otherworldly and ephemeral landscapes on Earth, a place where the color blue becomes not just a hue, but an atmosphere. The walls of these caves seem to glow from within, drenched in deep sapphire and turquoise, rippling and refracting light in ways that defy description. To step inside one of these caves is to enter a frozen cathedral, sculpted by nature with a level of grace and precision no hand could ever match. Vatnajökull, covering roughly 8% of Iceland's landmass, is not merely a glacier. It's a complex system of ice caps, volcanoes, subglacial lakes, and hidden flows. Beneath this immense sheet of ice, over 900 meters thick in some places, lie volcanic giants like Grímsvötn and Brabunga, whose geothermal heat contributes to the glacier's dynamic evolution. It's this combination of fire and ice, of pressure, time, and hidden rivers, that gives rise to the natural wonder of the ice caves. Each winter, as the temperature drops and the meltwater within the glacier freezes once more, new caves are born, while old ones collapse or evolve. No two seasons yield the same cave. What you see one year may be gone the next, swallowed again by the slow, relentless movement of the ice. The formation of these caves is a process of both destruction and creation. Meltwater from the glacier's surface, heated by the summer sun or geothermal energy, finds its way down through cracks and crevices. As it flows and swirls through the glacier, it carves out tunnels and caverns with liquid precision. When the cold returns and the flow diminishes, these hollows stabilize and become accessible to humans, for a time. Inside, the walls are smooth and rippled like waves of frozen smoke, their surfaces lit with an ethereal blue that comes from centuries of compressed snow turned into dense, pure ice. The older the ice, the bluer it becomes, having shed the air bubbles and impurities that scatter light. What remains is pure refracted blue, cold, deep, and stunningly vivid. Light inside the caves behaves differently. It doesn't just illuminate, it penetrates and shimmers. Rays of sunlight filter through meters of translucent ice, casting soft glows and glacial shadows. Some areas gleam with crystal clarity, while others are cloaked in darkness, the colors fading into navy and black. Water occasionally drips from the ceiling or freezes in mid-fall, forming icicle chandeliers. The floor might be smooth with packed snow or glittering with a crust of hoarfrost, while walls can feature air pockets, tiny trapped particles, or ancient soot from distant volcanic eruptions embedded like memories in the ice. Despite their beauty, these caves are not to be taken lightly. They are living structures, constantly changing. Temperatures, seismic activity, and glacier movement all affect their stability. Guides, often locals who have lived with the glacier for generations, meticulously scout and evaluate the caves for safety before each visit. Access typically begins in November and ends by March, when the warmer temperatures begin to make the ice unpredictable and hazardous. Entering one of these caves without an experienced guide is not only foolish, but potentially fatal. Roofs can collapse, ice can shear, and hidden crevasses can swallow the unaware in an instant. Yet, with proper precautions, a guided exploration of the Vatnajökull ice caves is one of the most awe-inspiring experiences a person can have. The silence is profound, broken only by the soft drip of water or the distant rumble of the glacier shifting in its slumber. The air is cold, but clean and invigorating. You feel the age of the place in every step, the weight of centuries above your head, the stillness of millennia under your feet. Here, time doesn't flow, it freezes. And in that suspension, beauty sharpens to its purest edge. Some caves take on fantastical names: the Crystal Cave, the Sapphire Cave, the Northern Lights Cave, each echoing the visual spectacle they contain. The Crystal Cave, for instance, has become one of the most famous due to its massive vaulted ceiling and the almost surreal color clarity of its ice walls. It feels less like a cave and more like a translucent palace where the light is not reflected, but absorbed and re-released in shades of celestial blue. In some corners, the ice is so clear you can see meters into it, like gazing into a gemstone. In others, it twists and distorts light like a frozen funhouse mirror, making the space seem to expand and contract with each step. The cultural and symbolic resonance of these caves is just as deep as their physical beauty. Icelanders, long attuned to the moods of their land, often speak of the glacier as alive, breathing, dreaming, and remembering. The caves are thought of as passages into that deeper consciousness, the hidden heart of Vatnajökull. Here, the boundaries between nature and spirit blur. Even for the most secular visitor, the effect is overwhelming. Words tend to falter. Many emerge from the cave not just awed, but quieted, as if having been inside something not just beautiful, but sacred. And then, as winter fades, the caves begin to vanish. Warmer temperatures and sunlight weaken the arches, water begins to flow again, and the caves collapse into themselves. The glacier absorbs their memory and begins the process anew. In this way, the Vatnajökull ice caves are not permanent structures, but moments, ephemeral gifts sculpted by nature only to disappear again, reminding us of the fleeting and precious nature of wonder. To witness one of these ice caves is to witness Earth at its most magical and mysterious, a dance of light, water, cold, and time, performed beneath the surface of a sleeping giant. In a world where so many places are shaped by human intervention, the Vatnajökull ice caves stand as proof that some of the most extraordinary beauty still arises from wild, patient forces beyond our control, and that even in the coldest corners of the Earth, the soul can be set ablaze by color, light, and silence. In the remote reaches of Chilean Patagonia, nestled against the tranquil waters of General Carrera Lake, lies one of the most hypnotic and delicate geological wonders on Earth, the Marble Caves, or Capillas de Marmol. This otherworldly network of natural marble formations has been sculpted by nothing more than water and time, and what has emerged is a dreamlike world of swirling blues, graceful arches, cathedral-like chambers, and luminous reflections that dance and shift with every subtle movement of light. Set within a glacier-fed lake whose waters range from cerulean to jade depending on the season, these caves are not just a destination, they are a pilgrimage into beauty, fragility, and solitude. The marble caves were formed over more than 6,000 years, the result of relentless wave erosion from the lake's mineral-rich waters as they lapped at the calcium carbonate rock of a peninsula that juts into General Carrera Lake. Over millennia, the water carved and polished the stone into smooth, flowing shapes, columns, tunnels, alcoves, and vaulted ceilings. The rock itself is composed almost entirely of pure marble, though streaked with lines of grey, white, yellow, and deep blue. The result is a visual symphony of color and motion, made even more surreal by the way the sunlight refracts through the glacier-fed lake, projecting liquid patterns across the curved stone surfaces. To visit the marble caves is to first undertake a journey into the heart of Patagonia, a region known for its dramatic mountains, windswept plains, and extreme isolation. The caves are most often accessed from the small town of Puerto Rio Tranquilo, and even reaching this point requires a long, winding trip, either by air and gravel road or by driving hundreds of kilometers along the famed but rugged Carretera Austral. Yet for those who make the effort, the reward is unparalleled. Most visitors arrive by small boat or kayak, which allows for an intimate exploration of the caves as they rise and fall just above the surface of the lake. Depending on the season, the time of day, and the clarity of the skies, the appearance of the caves can vary dramatically. In the spring and early summer, when snowmelt swells the lake, the water is often a rich turquoise blue, so clear and glassy that the marble walls appear to float, untethered, between water and sky. In these moments, the entire space seems to become fluid, rock appearing like frozen waves, and water reflecting the marbled patterns above it like an echo of stone. The shifting interplay of light and reflection gives the illusion that the caves themselves are glowing from within. Inside, the silence is profound. Sound is dampened by the curving rock, the water's surface is soft, and the only noise comes from the gentle splash of paddle or engine. The caves are not a single space but a series of interconnected formations. The marble cathedral, with its sweeping archways and reflective pool, the marble chapel, where narrower tunnels lead into intimate chambers of rippling stone, and the marble caverns, abstract and surreal, with ceilings painted in nature's own brushstroke patterns. The names themselves evoke a reverence, and it's easy to understand why. The place feels holy in a primal sense, as if you've entered a temple crafted not by hands, but by the slow, patient fingers of wind, water, and geological time. The coloration of the marble is the result of varying mineral deposits and sediment that were present when the rock formed millions of years ago. The swirling patterns and hues, from creamy whites to stormy greys, from honeyed yellows to oceanic blues, give each chamber a unique personality. And while photographs can capture some of the ethereal beauty, they fall short of conveying the full sensory experience. The cool air, the gentle rocking of the boat, the scent of fresh water and limestone, the almost unbelievable purity of the light. Despite its relative obscurity on the global tourism map, the marble caves have become something of a cult destination for landscape photographers, nature lovers, and seekers of hidden wonders. Their isolation has helped preserve them, but they remain vulnerable. The caves are extremely fragile, and increasing tourism, while bringing economic opportunities to the region, also raises concerns about long-term conservation. As with many of the Earth's natural masterpieces, the balance between accessibility and preservation remains delicate. There is also the ever-present shadow of climate change, which threatens the stability of glacial systems that feed the lake and influence water levels and mineral content, both of which are crucial to the continued sculpting and maintenance of these natural works of art. In the moments when the sun pierces through a break in the clouds and casts golden beams across the walls, the marble caves seem to dissolve into something elemental, almost mystical. The experience is more than visual. It's immersive, almost transformative. Visitors often describe a sense of weightlessness, of being suspended in time and space. The rhythm of the paddle, the slow turning of the boat, the echo of a single drop of water, all of it combines into an atmosphere that feels utterly unrepeatable. And that's perhaps the greatest gift of the marble caves, their unrepeatable nature. Each visit is different, shaped by the mood of the lake, the direction of the wind, the sharpness of the light. There is no fixed appearance to memorize, no perfect photograph that captures it all. The caves demand presence, to be seen and felt in the moment, before the sun shifts or a cloud drifts by. In this way, they teach us something gentle and profound, that beauty is often most powerful when it is fleeting, when it must be experienced fully and let go, like water sliding across marble, leaving behind only memory. Here, at the ends of the earth, nature has composed a quiet masterpiece. Not loud or towering like some of the planet's more thunderous landmarks, but delicate, subtle, deeply poetic. A cathedral of patience. A chapel of stone and light. A cavernous gallery where time itself is the artist. Tucked away in the arid wilderness of the Paria Canyon Vermilion Cliffs wilderness on the border between Arizona and Utah lies one of the most visually surreal and Fiercely protected natural wonders in the American Southwest, the wave. This geological masterpiece, carved into the Navajo sandstone of the Jurassic-era Colorado Plateau, looks less like something crafted by wind and water and more like a fluid, hand-painted illusion on a massive canvas of rock. With its kaleidoscopic ribbons of ochre, rust, vermilion, gold, and ivory, the wave doesn't simply stand out. It ripples across the senses, seeming to shift and twist as you move through it, like a mirage frozen in stone. Formed over 190 million years ago, the wave began as ancient sand dunes, slowly petrified into sandstone and then sculpted by eons of relentless wind and sparse seasonal rain. What makes the wave unique, even among the dramatic desert landscapes of the American Southwest, is its astonishing curvature. Sweeping, liquid-like waves and narrow troughs that rise and fold into domes, ridges, and undulating passages. The rock here isn't static, it flows. Lines twist like ribbons in a breeze, echoing the motion of water, fire, and time. In some places, the lines are delicate, barely visible. In others, they surge in thick, dramatic sweeps that seem to warp perspective itself. Approaching the wave is not simply a walk, it's a rite of passage. Due to its ecological sensitivity and overwhelming popularity, the U.S. Bureau of Land Management limits access to only a small number of daily visitors through a strict lottery system. This exclusivity enhances the mystique. Only 20 people per day are granted the chance to make the arduous, unmarked, and often brutally hot 6-mile round-trip trek across the slick rock wilderness of the Coyote Buttes North region. There are no signs, no paved paths, and little shade. GPS signals are unreliable, and the desert sun is unforgiving. Yet for those who endure, the reward is like stepping into a painting rendered not with brush and pigment, but with pressure, erosion, and light. When you finally round the last sandstone ridge and the first ribbons of the wave come into view, the world seems to pause. It's difficult to absorb at first, the colors so vivid, the forms so implausible, it almost feels digitally fabricated. But it's real. Every contour tells the story of sedimentation patterns from when this land was a vast desert covered in wind-blown dunes, and every hue corresponds to different mineral concentrations. Iron oxide for red and orange, manganese for purple, and calcium for white. What you witness is the geological choreography of an ancient Earth, still dancing in stone. Photography of the wave has become almost mythic. Capturing it in perfect light is an obsession for landscape photographers. In the golden hours of early morning or late afternoon, the low sun angle ignites the sandstone into a glowing, firelit palette, casting long shadows that emphasize its dynamic structure. On cloudy days, the formations take on a more subtle tone, ethereal and dreamlike. No matter the weather, it's impossible to take the same photograph twice. The angles of light and shadow constantly redefine the terrain. Beyond the main wave formation lies a broader canvas of surreal formations. The second wave, a more subtle but equally mesmerizing series of swirling ridges and dome-like shapes. The dinosaur tracks preserved in adjacent sandstone flats, a haunting echo of prehistoric life, and the striated buttes and slot canyons that radiate like forgotten trails through stone time. Every footstep in this landscape feels like an intrusion into something timeless and sacred. And the wave is more than visual. It's quiet. So quiet, in fact, that the only sounds are often your breath, the crunch of sand underfoot, and the occasional whistle of desert wind threading its way through crevices. There are no crowds, no distant highway hum, no overhead aircraft, just isolation, immersion, and awe. In a world of over-tourism and Instagram-driven travel, the wave remains one of the last great sanctuaries of undisturbed beauty, thanks in large part to its strict visitation policies and the shared respect of those who reach it. But its fragility is undeniable. The sandstone is delicate, easily damaged by carelessness. Even a single misstep can scar the intricate texture of the rock for years. This is why access is so tightly controlled, and why the Bureau of Land Management emphasizes leave no trace principles for all who enter. It is a place that reminds us not only of nature's grandeur, but of our responsibility to it. Visitors often speak of the wave in reverent tones, as if it were a sacred site. And in many ways, it is. Though it has no temple walls or carved idols, it is a shrine to time and patience, to the slow, ceaseless labor of wind and erosion. Standing within its swirling folds, you may feel as though you've been transported to another world, or that Earth itself has revealed one of its more surreal and intimate secrets, normally kept hidden beneath more ordinary landscapes. There is a dreamlike quality to the experience. Some travelers liken it to stepping inside a Van Gogh painting, others to drifting through the folds of a silk scarf caught in mid-air. But whatever the metaphor, the feeling is universal. Wonder, humility, and the humbling awareness that even in this age of satellites and street views, there are still places on Earth that feel like whispers from another dimension. And so the wave remains, waiting quietly in the Arizona desert, protected not just by permits and regulations, but by the silence of those who walk its ridges and leave only footprints that will vanish in the wind. A masterpiece etched in stone, meant not to be owned, but to be witnessed, carefully, briefly, and with deep reverence. Tucked into the sun-baked hills of British Columbia's arid Okanagan Valley, just west of the small town of Osoyoos near the US border, lies one of the most visually bizarre and sacred landscapes in North America. Spotted Lake, or Kaluk as it's known to the Syilx, Okanagan, First Nations people. From afar, it might appear as an ordinary pond nestled in a desert basin. But as summer approaches and the lake's water begins to evaporate under the relentless heat, the surface transforms into something truly alien. A surreal patchwork of colorful, perfectly round spots ranging in hue from yellow and green to white, blue, and deep ochre. These are not painted patterns or tricks of light. They are pools of concentrated minerals left behind in a natural process thousands of years in the making. The science behind this psychedelic phenomenon is as fascinating as the site itself. Spotted Lake contains one of the highest concentrations of minerals of any body of water on Earth. Magnesium sulfate, calcium, sodium sulfate, and trace elements such as silver and titanium. As the water evaporates during the scorching summer months, these minerals crystallize and form into isolated puddles, each rimmed by mineral deposits that give them their striking outlines. The colors vary based on the exact chemical makeup of each spot and the angle of the sun, producing an ever-changing mosaic of organic shapes that seem more like abstract art than anything one expects in nature. Walking near the lake's edge during peak summer is like hovering over a painter's palette spilled across the desert floor. Each spot glimmers under the midday sun, shallow and shimmering with surface tension. Some appear metallic, others matte, some glow almost neon. The symmetry of the spots, many of them nearly perfect circles, feels uncanny, like the result of a meticulous algorithm or sacred geometry. Yet it is entirely natural, guided only by time, temperature, and the quiet work of evaporation. But Spotted Lake is not just a geological curiosity, it is a deeply sacred site for the indigenous Syilx people, who have revered it for centuries. To them, Kaluk is not merely beautiful, it is healing. Each of the mineral-rich pools was believed to possess unique medicinal properties. The lake was historically a place of spiritual importance, a natural apothecary where warriors would soak their wounds and elders would perform purification ceremonies. Even today, access to the lake is restricted to protect its sanctity. Visitors are allowed to view it from a designated lookout on Highway 3, where interpretive signs explain both its cultural and ecological significance. This limited access helps preserve the fragile shoreline and honors the wishes of the local First Nations. In fact, the lake's recent history reflects a growing recognition of its cultural importance. For decades, the land was privately owned and there were plans to develop the site. At one point, even a spa resort was considered. But in 2001, the Syilx people, along with government support, succeeded in purchasing the land and returning it to indigenous stewardship. Since then, efforts have been made to restore and protect the area, allowing it to remain a site of quiet reverence rather than commercial spectacle. Ecologically, the region around Spotted Lake is part of a unique biome, the shrub steppe ecosystem, which is relatively rare in Canada. This arid, semi-desert terrain is home to drought-resistant grasses, sagebrush, and a host of specialized wildlife. The contrast is striking, a kaleidoscopic lake set within a land more reminiscent of the American Southwest than the usual image of Canadian wilderness. Rattlesnakes, burrowing owls, and antelope ground squirrels thrive here, sharing the sun-blasted slopes with twisted trees and ancient petroglyphs carved into nearby rock faces. For those who visit, even from a distance, Spotted Lake offers a kind of visual poetry that feels deeply metaphorical. It's a place where the earth reveals its inner chemistry without fanfare or violence, just heat, time, and the inevitable retreat of water. There is no rushing waterfall, no towering peak, no dramatic thunderclap, only stillness, and color, and shape. Yet in that simplicity lies immense wonder. At dawn or dusk, When the low sun stretches shadows across the land and the colors of the spots soften into dreamlike pastels, Spotted Lake becomes not just a place to look at, but a place to feel. It evokes the passage of time in slow motion. You begin to see it not only as a marvel of nature, but as a symbol of patience and transformation. The kind of place that whispers rather than roars. In an age where landscapes are increasingly dominated by the artificial and the engineered, Spotted Lake stands as a quiet testament to the artistry of geology and the cultural memory of the land's original stewards. It reminds us that the most unbelievable places on Earth aren't always massive or loud. Some, like Kaluk, simply shimmer quietly in the desert, holding their stories in concentric rings of mineral and memory. Far from the mainland shores of Belize, nestled within the translucent blues of the Caribbean Sea, lies a gaping marine mystery so massive and mesmerizing that it looks as though a portal to another world has opened in the ocean floor. This is the Great Blue Hole, a near-perfectly circular sinkhole measuring over 300 meters, 984 feet, across and plunging to depths exceeding 120 meters, 394 feet. From above, it appears as an impossibly dark eye amid the bright turquoise waters of the surrounding lighthouse reef, fringed with coral and shimmering sandbars, giving it the appearance of a cosmic anomaly that defies logic. First made world-famous by Jacques Cousteau in 1971 when he declared it one of the top 5 scuba diving sites on the planet, the Great Blue Hole has since become a symbol of both Earth's geological wonder and its mysterious underwater realm. Formed during the last ice age, the sinkhole began its life on land as a vast limestone cave system. Over time, as sea levels rose dramatically with the melting of glacier, the roof of the cave collapsed and the ocean swept in, leaving behind the enormous vertical chasm we see today. What makes the Great Blue Hole particularly spellbinding is not just its shape or size, but its sheer clarity and visual contrast. The outer reef, shallow and sunlit, glows in varying shades of blue and green, giving way to the sudden inky darkness of the hole's vertical descent. From the surface, the hole is a perfect circle, as though someone had punched a void into the seafloor with precision tools. Yet this perfection is entirely natural, the product of ancient tectonics and eons of erosion at work beneath the surface. Below the waterline, the hole becomes a cathedral of geological and ecological discovery. Descending into its depths is like passing through multiple worlds. The upper levels are filled with schools of vibrant reef fish, cruising between coral overhangs and the vertical wall. Deeper down, the sunlight begins to fade, and large stalactites appear, remnants of its cave-bound past, now submerged and encrusted with marine life. These ancient stone formations, some as tall as columns in Gothic cathedrals, provide evidence that the cave system was once dry, allowing scientists to trace back climatic shifts from tens of thousands of years ago. Around 90 meters, 300 feet, down, a thick layer of hydrogen sulfide forms a toxic, cloudy band that blocks out all light and oxygen. Below this point, the environment becomes anoxic, a lifeless realm where neither fish nor coral can survive. This eerie transition is a stark reminder of the ocean's many layers, both literal and metaphorical, and of how little we truly know about the deep sea. When Cousteau's team dove into the hole decades ago, their lights barely pierced the murk, and even today, much of the sinkhole's bottom remains largely unexplored. In 2018, a high-resolution mapping expedition led by Richard Branson and Fabien Cousteau, Jacques Cousteau's grandson, deployed state-of-the-art sonar technology and submersibles to chart the Great Blue Hole's interior in stunning detail. What they discovered astonished even seasoned marine researchers: massive overhangs, cavernous chambers, and evidence of life and death locked within the walls. They also encountered the remains of 2 divers who had perished in past years, a chilling reminder of the risks involved in exploring the abyss. Yet despite its foreboding depth, the Great Blue Hole is not a place of desolation. The surrounding reef teems with biodiversity. Nurse sharks, giant groupers, parrotfish, sea turtles, and eagle rays are frequently seen gliding near the rim. The contrast between the life above and the void below lends the site an otherworldly energy, as if it exists on the edge of 2 ecosystems, or 2 dimensions altogether. The surface is tranquil, but the descent is mythic. To the ancient Maya, who once flourished in what is now Belize, deep water sites like the Blue Hole likely held great spiritual significance. Sinkholes and cenotes were considered sacred entrances to the underworld, and while there's no direct evidence the Great Blue Hole itself was known to them, its very nature echoes these beliefs, a vast, seemingly bottomless gateway in the sea, untouched by time. The allure of the Great Blue Hole is not just in its rarity or its visual drama, it is in its paradoxes. It is both light and shadow, a place teeming with coral life around the edge and entirely devoid of it within. It represents both discovery and mystery, knowledge and the unknown. It is an example of Earth's raw power, formed not in a cataclysmic instant, but over tens of thousands of years, sculpted by ancient seas and collapses that no human eye ever witnessed. For travelers, divers, and explorers, visiting the Great Blue Hole is often described as humbling, a place where you feel dwarfed not just by the size of nature, but by the scope of time itself. To float over the rim and stare down into the perfectly round chasm is to be reminded that some places on Earth feel closer to the stars or the void of space than to the familiar world around us. It's a reminder that not all wonders are built on land, and that the ocean, deep, ancient, and unknowable, still holds secrets darker and more beautiful than anything we can imagine. Hidden within the lush, subtropical heartland of Yunnan province in southern China, the Wolingyuan scenic area rises like an ancient myth reawakened. This UNESCO World Heritage Site is not merely a landscape, it is a vertical world carved by time and held aloft by mist, where sandstone pillars reach for the sky like the fingers of giants. Over 3,000 such towering quartzite peaks and spires punctuate the region's thick forests and deep ravines, many of them cloaked in perennial fog. The surreal, dreamlike quality of this place earned it global fame as the real-life inspiration for the floating Hallelujah Mountains in James Cameron's Avatar. But long before cinema borrowed its magic, Wolingyuan was already a place of legends, revered in Chinese poetry, painting, and folklore. Spanning more than 260 square kilometers, the area encompasses several scenic parks, most notably Zhangye National Forest Park, Qianzi Mountain Nature Reserve, Suoshi Valley, and the Yangjiajie Scenic Area. Each one is a self-contained marvel, yet collectively they form a labyrinthine kingdom of vertical stone and shifting light. The geological story behind these pillars is a tale written over 300 million years. Once submerged beneath an ancient sea, the region's sedimentary rock was uplifted by tectonic forces and slowly weathered by rain, wind, and frost. What remained are the needle-like monoliths, some over 200 meters, 650 feet, tall, with sheer walls and narrow bases, defying gravity and logic alike. Walking through Wolingyuan often feels like stepping into a painting animated by clouds. At dawn, the mist clings to the forest floor and curls up the cliffs like smoke from an unseen fire. The sunlight filters through in golden rays, casting long shadows and revealing glimpses of vertical valleys that seem to stretch into other worlds. These ethereal conditions change by the hour. One moment you may be surrounded by fog, the next by piercing blue sky and sunlight illuminating moss-covered cliffs and cascading vines. The Qianzi mountain area offers some of the most iconic vistas. The name Qianzi means son of heaven, a reference to the leader of a local Tujia ethnic rebellion who declared himself emperor centuries ago. The name is fitting. Here, the spires seem almost celestial, hovering in a sea of mist. On clear days, they rise like stone ships from an ocean of clouds. From the summit viewing platforms, visitors often fall silent, confronted by the sheer depth and scale of what lies before them. It's not unusual for monkeys to scamper across the railings or for exotic birds to call out from the canopy far below, reminding you that life pulses through this vertical forest at every level. Not all wonders are visible from afar. Hidden within the folds of Wolingyuan are countless secrets, waterfalls that tumble hundreds of feet into hidden gorges, natural stone bridges like the Heaven's Bridge, and caves filled with crystalline stalactites, such as the Yellow Dragon Cave, which descends over 100 meters underground and contains rivers, chambers, and vast columns formed drop by drop over millennia. One of the most unique features in the area is the Bailong Elevator, the world's tallest outdoor elevator. Built into the side of a cliff, this engineering marvel soars 326 meters, 1,070 feet, and offers breathtaking views as it ascends the stone walls in a glass carriage. Though controversial when it was first built, the elevator has become a symbol of how modern technology coexists with ancient grandeur in China's most remote landscapes. The entire region is laced with walking trails, suspension bridges, and quiet villages where ethnic minorities like the Tujia and Miao people continue to live in traditional ways. Their presence adds a human rhythm to the geologic silence. You may pass a farmer guiding a water buffalo near a misty stream or come across prayer flags fluttering beside a stone temple built into the cliffs. Many of their legends speak of celestial beings descending upon these mountains, of lovers turned to stone, of gods who walked among the peaks. These tales do not feel far-fetched when you are surrounded by pillars that vanish into the clouds. And yet, despite its cinematic fame and increasing tourism, much of Wulingyuan remains remarkably untamed. The biodiversity here is staggering. It is home to over 3,000 species of plants and countless animals, some of them endemic to the region. Rare orchids bloom on cliff faces. Clouded leopards and golden pheasants slip through the underbrush. The ecosystem is vertical, layered, and alive with the pulse of millions of years of evolution and adaptation. Perhaps more than any other landscape in China, Wulingyuan embodies the Daoist aesthetic ideal, a harmony of stone and spirit, permanence and impermanence. The mountains do not shout their majesty. They rise quietly, humbly, wrapped in cloud and story. They change not through violence but through slow, deliberate transformation. They do not demand attention. They simply exist, knowing that those who seek beauty and solitude will eventually find them. It is no surprise, then, that Wulingyuan inspired the floating islands of Avatar. Yet no special effects can fully replicate the feeling of standing at the edge of a cliff here, looking across a forest of vertical peaks, breathing in mist heavy with the scent of pine and ancient stone. In Wulingyuan, the earth feels both old and young, both solid and dreamlike, a place where time seems to evaporate, and where every step reveals a new layer of wonder. In the western reaches of Egypt, far beyond the bustling cities and the crowded banks of the Nile, lies a landscape so surreal, so eerily otherworldly, that it appears less like a desert and more like the residue of some cosmic collision. This is the White Desert, known in Arabic as Sahara el Baida, a vast chalky expanse carved not by water or glacier, but by wind, time, and silence. It stretches across the Farafra Depression, nestled within the larger Western Desert, and it is unlike any other stretch of land on Earth. Here, amid scorching sun and cold desert winds, strange white formations rise from the ochre sand like frozen clouds, ancient sea creatures, and colossal fungi from a distant moon. What sets the White Desert apart from other arid regions is not only its dazzling color, a stark, ghostly white that glows silver under the moonlight, but the bizarre shapes its geology has taken. Over thousands of years, soft Cretaceous chalk and limestone formations have been chiseled by sandstorms into shapes that resemble giant mushrooms, leaning towers, squat toadstools, melting domes, and alien obelisks. Some of these sculptures are smooth and wind-polished, others jagged and flaking like weather-beaten bones. All seem to defy natural explanation. It's as if an unseen sculptor spent millennia shaping the landscape with whispered breaths of wind and fine blades of sand. During the day, the landscape is blinding. The white chalk reflects the intense Egyptian sun with dazzling force, making sunglasses not a luxury but a necessity. As you walk, each step kicks up a whisper of dust over a ground that feels more like powdered glass than sand. The desert stillness is profound. There are no trees, no water, no bird songs, only the crunch of your boots and the hum of wind slipping around stone. And yet, there is rhythm here. There is motion. The formations catch shadows that move across them like ghostly fingers as the sun arcs overhead. The longer you spend among these sculptures, the more they reveal. One moment, a formation looks like a chicken beside a tree, a famous pairing known locally as the chicken and the mushroom. Walk around it, and the illusion shifts. What was once a recognizable shape becomes abstract again. Some rocks appear as sleeping camels. Others stretch like frozen waves, crested and foaming. This illusionary quality is no accident. It's the result of millennia of wind erosion carving delicate arches, scoops, and curves into what was once seabed rock laid down over 80 million years ago. That's part of the uncanny wonder. This desert was once an ocean. Long ago, the region was submerged beneath the Tessis Sea, and the limestone here is rich with fossilized remains of ancient marine life, shells, coral, and even the bones of whales and fish. Though time has bleached and broken these remnants, they whisper of a time when fish swam where sand now drifts. The sea is gone, but its ghost lingers in every ridge and ripple of stone. Nightfall in the White Desert is nothing short of transcendental. As the sun dips behind the horizon, the chalk formations blush with soft pinks and oranges before fading to ghostly blue under the rising moon. And then, as darkness fully arrives, the stars come. Far from the light pollution of civilization, the desert sky erupts with constellations, the Milky Way bright and low, planets shining like gems, meteors tracing quiet arcs across the heavens. Campfires flicker in the distance where Bedouin guides make tea over open flame, their tents nestled among the stone sculptures like temporary villages in a forgotten world. Camping here is an experience few forget. The temperature drops sharply after sundown, and the silence deepens. There are no nocturnal insects buzzing, no rustle of leaves, only the faint sound of the wind pushing sand across stone. People sleep among giants, watched over by formations that look like mythic sentinels or ancient spirits. And in the morning, the desert reveals itself anew, the same sculptures, yet somehow changed by the shifting light. The White Desert is part of a protected national park, and efforts have been made in recent years to limit environmental damage from vehicles and tourism. The terrain is delicate, the chalk is soft and easily marked, and even footprints can scar the powdery surface for months. Most visitors arrive with experienced guides, often from the nearby oasis town of Farafra, one of the smallest and most remote of Egypt's desert settlements. The people here are warm and welcoming, many of them descendants of Bedouin tribes who have roamed this desert for generations. Their knowledge of the land is unmatched. They can read the desert like a book, understanding every ridge, every landmark, and the subtle signs of wind and weather. The White Desert has long been a place of contemplation. For some, it offers aesthetic wonder, a natural art gallery shaped by time. For others, it becomes something spiritual, a silent retreat from the noise of life, where the scale and emptiness force inward reflection. To walk alone through its stillness is to hear the voice of the earth before cities, before noise, before everything else. And while other deserts may offer dunes and grandeur, the White Desert provides something stranger, a realm where the land seems alive, where the wind has written poetry into stone, and where every formation suggests a riddle. It is a place that asks questions of the imagination, that blurs the line between nature and sculpture, and that, in the moonlight, becomes nothing less than a ghost-white dreamscape lost in time. In the northeastern reaches of Brazil, where the equator casts its unwavering gaze and the Atlantic winds dance inland with tropical fervor, lies one of the most bewildering and magnificent contradictions on Earth, Lenquar Maranhenses National Park. From above, it looks like a vast, endless canvas of ivory-colored dunes, undulating across the land like an unrolled scroll of silk. But hidden between these seemingly endless waves of sand are thousands of crystalline rainwater lagoons, turquoise and sapphire jewels nestled in white dunes, as if some deity had wept onto the desert and the tears never evaporated. This place defies categorization. Though it looks like a desert, it is not one by definition. Though filled with freshwater pools, it is not a lake district. Lenquar Maranhenses, literally the bedsheets of Maranhão, is an extraordinary anomaly, a surreal landscape sculpted by wind, water, and time. Covering over 1,500 square kilometers in the state of Maranhão, Lenquar Maranhenses is a protected national park formed by the interplay of Atlantic trade winds and seasonal rainfall. During the dry months, from September to December, the region presents itself as a blinding desert, endless dunes, some reaching 40 meters in height, reshaped daily by the wind. The sand is pale, nearly white, composed of quartz grains carried inland by river systems over millennia. But then, come January, the rains arrive. Rainfall in the region is copious and sustained, and since the sand sits atop impermeable rock, the water does not seep away. Instead, it pools in the hollows between the dunes, creating thousands of temporary lagoons of astonishing clarity and color. By the time the rain slows in May and June, the park transforms into something almost unthinkable, a hybrid of desert and oasis, where dune after dune is interrupted by long, curving lagoons of blue and green. Some stretch for hundreds of meters, bordered on all sides by smooth, sweeping dunes, creating natural infinity pools in the middle of a barren sea of sand. What makes Lenquar Maranhenses even more magical is its transience. The lagoons are not permanent. They appear in the rainy season, reach their fullest and most photogenic form around June and July, and begin to evaporate by September. By the time the next rains return, many have vanished entirely, only to be reborn again in a new pattern. No 2 years are the same. No 2 lagoons last the same duration. Even the locations and shapes of the pools can vary slightly, making every visit unique, a fleeting gift of geography. The water itself is astonishingly clear, often revealing the smooth sand floor below. Depending on the angle of the sun, the depth of the pool, and the minerals in the surrounding area, the lagoons can appear turquoise, emerald, or deep cobalt. During the right hour of light, the The contrast between the blue water and the white sand is so vivid that it resembles a digital rendering rather than a natural scene. The visual impact is profound, like walking into a dream where a tropical paradise and a desert merged into one coherent and impossible world. Despite the apparent harshness of the landscape, life persists. Some of the lagoons host fish, notably the wolffish, Hopleus malabaricus, which somehow survive in the mud during the dry season, buried and dormant, re-emerging when the waters return. There are also freshwater turtles, frogs, and a variety of migratory birds who depend on the water for sustenance during their journeys. The park, while often perceived as desolate, is teeming with life when the lagoons awaken. Visiting Lenquois Maranhenses is an adventure unlike any other. The nearest gateway is the town of Barreirinhas, from which 4x4 vehicles carry visitors into the park, across rivers and sand, often following barely marked paths. Once inside the park, the modern world disappears. No roads, no buildings, no noise, just sand, sky, and water. There are no permanent settlements inside the park's boundaries, though nearby communities like Ottens and Santo Amaro offer rustic accommodations and local flavor. These villages, often accessible only by boat or dirt track, feel like outposts on the edge of an enchanted frontier. Trekking through the dunes can be both physically challenging and spiritually immersive. The sand is soft underfoot, and each dune crested reveals a new perspective. Pools hidden like secrets in the troughs, the ocean shimmering in the far distance, and the vast, empty sky overhead. Swimming in one of the lagoons is a deeply serene experience. The water is often warm and inviting, and the only sounds are the wind, the lapping of water, and your own breath as you float suspended between sky and sand. Sunset here is particularly unforgettable. The white dunes blush with golden light, and the water reflects hues of lavender, amber, and crimson. As darkness falls, the stars emerge, bright, countless, and ancient, turning the desert into a celestial observatory. With no city lights for miles, the constellations seem close enough to touch, mirrored in the calm surfaces of the lagoons like the reflections of a dreaming universe. The Brazilian government has made strides to protect this fragile and unique environment. While tourism has grown over the years, strict regulations limit development inside the park. Sustainable practices are encouraged, and local guides play a key role in preserving both the ecosystem and the authentic experience for visitors. Many of them are from the region and share ancestral connections with the land, possessing deep knowledge of weather patterns, flora, fauna, and the subtle rhythms of the sand and sky. Lenquois Maranhenses is a place of paradox and poetry. It challenges our assumptions about what landscapes can be. It exists because of contradictions: a desert that floods, dunes that host fish, lagoons that vanish. It is ephemeral and eternal at once, always changing, yet always returning in some form. Those who visit it often speak not just of seeing beauty, but of encountering a kind of elemental wonder, the earth speaking a language few places still know. It's a symphony written in wind and water, a mirage made real, and a gentle reminder that even the harshest environments can hold soft, secret miracles. On the edge of Middle Island, the largest of the Rechurch archipelago off the southern coast of Western Australia, lies one of the most visually arresting and biologically mysterious natural wonders on the planet, Lake Hillier. From an aerial view, the site is almost surreal, a vivid, bubblegum pink body of water nestled within a ring of white salt crust and bordered by a strip of dense forest, all set against the backdrop of the deep azure Southern Ocean. The contrast is so stark, so improbable, that it almost looks as if nature herself indulged in an artistic whim, painting a single lake with a color not found in any ordinary palette. Measuring about 600 meters in length and roughly 250 meters in width, Lake Hillier may not be vast, but its uniqueness defies its size. What sets this lake apart is its color, an unmistakable, radiant pink that remains consistent year-round. Unlike other colored lakes around the world that may shift hues depending on season, angle of light, or microbial concentration, Lake Hillier is persistently pink, even when bottled or removed from its source. This alone baffles and fascinates scientists and travelers alike. The lake's pink hue is believed to be the result of a symbiotic blend of microorganisms and chemical processes. Chief among the contributors is Dunaliella salina, a type of halophile, or salt-loving, microalgae that thrives in the lake's hypersaline environment. This microalga produces carotenoids, especially beta-carotene, a pigment also found in carrots and sweet potatoes, which gives the lake its rosy tint. Additionally, halobacteria, another type of salt-loving organism, and certain strains of Salinibacter ruber may also play a role, releasing reddish pigments that further enhance the coloration. The interaction between sunlight, high salinity, and microbial metabolism creates a stable chromatic effect that keeps the lake vibrantly pink, regardless of the time of year. Despite its saline nature, the lake is about as salty as the Dead Sea. Lake Hillier is non-toxic and entirely safe for swimming, although access is heavily regulated to protect its delicate ecosystem. The water doesn't emit any foul odor and has a smooth, almost syrupy consistency due to the high salt content. Though swimming is not generally permitted, those few who have entered its waters have described the experience as otherworldly, like floating in liquid candy. The surrounding environment is equally compelling. The lake is enclosed by a thin band of eucalyptus and paperback trees, which grow on a narrow sandbar separating the lake from the ocean. This natural barrier adds another layer of mystique. On one side, the calm, pink stillness of the lake. On the other, the roaring, deep blue expanse of the Southern Ocean. The juxtaposition of these two vastly different bodies of water, lying side by side yet never mixing, seems like a metaphor for the contradictions that exist in nature, balance born from contrast. Lake Hillier was first recorded by Western explorers in 1802, when British navigator Matthew Flinders sailed into the area aboard the HMS Investigator. He climbed Middle Island's highest peak, now known as Flinders Peak, and was taken aback by the sight of the Pink Lake, so much so that he included it in his early journals and scientific reports. Yet even with over 2 centuries of knowledge, Lake Hillier has kept its secrets. While modern scientific analysis has unraveled some of the microbial contributions to the lake's color, a complete understanding remains elusive. Unlike other pink lakes, such as Lake Retba in Senegal or the Hutt Lagoon in Western Australia, Hillier's water does not lose its pink tint when removed and placed in a container, further emphasizing its anomalous nature. Middle Island itself is uninhabited and protected as part of the Rechurch Archipelago Nature Reserve. The region is ecologically fragile, home to various seabirds, reptiles, and small mammals, some of which are endemic to the area. The surrounding ocean is rich with marine biodiversity, including sea lions, penguins, and migratory whales that occasionally pass through the deeper waters offshore. Because of its isolation and conservation status, Lake Hillier is not accessible by road or conventional means. The most popular way to view it is via scenic flight from the nearby town of Esperance, where aerial tours offer panoramic vistas of the lake's startling color contrast against its rugged coastal surroundings. For those who do manage to reach Middle Island by boat, typically through permitted eco-tours, the experience becomes even more intimate. Standing on the white salt-encrusted shore of Lake Hillier, with the perfume of eucalyptus on the breeze and the sound of the ocean just over the ridge, one can't help but feel like they're on another planet. It is not just the color of the lake that captivates, but the silence, the stillness, and the overwhelming sense of wonder that such a place exists at all. Lake Hillier also evokes broader reflections about the planet's hidden wonders. How many other lakes, forests, or islands exist in relative obscurity, holding secrets born from complex ecological balances that we've yet to fully grasp? In an age of satellite mapping and global exploration, the enduring mystery of Lake Hillier is a reminder that there are still corners of the world where science intersects with poetry, and where a simple hue, impossible, unexplainable, permanent, can inspire or greater than any skyscraper or machine. Its pink waters do not shimmer for spectacle. They remain, in their quiet brilliance, as an emblem of Earth's capacity to astonish, to subvert expectations, and to hold the extraordinary within the familiar. The lake asks for nothing, no interpretation, no explanation, and yet gives so much to those who simply look, question, and marvel. In the desolate heart of the Danakil Depression in northeastern Ethiopia, where Earth's crust stretches thin and the sun scorches the landscape with some of the highest recorded temperatures on the planet, lies a place that almost defies the definition of terrestrial. The Dalol volcano is not a volcano in the traditional towering sense, but rather a hydrothermal field of unparalleled strangeness, a kaleidoscopic explosion of sulfur, salt, iron oxide, acid pools, and boiling springs. With hues so intense and surreal they seem digitally enhanced. Dalol is one of the most extreme, inhospitable, and alien-looking environments found anywhere on Earth. Approaching Dalol is like stepping into a hallucination. The land shimmers under the desert heat, painted in unthinkable colors. Pools of neon green and bright yellow bubble with sulfuric acid, flanked by crusty mounds of red, orange, and white mineral deposits that rise like coral in a sunless sea. Iron-rich outcrops glow with metallic sheens, while toxic gases snake through vents in the earth, forming ghostly wisps over jagged salt plains and thermal terraces. The ground itself is unstable, delicate in some places, crusted with razor-sharp mineral deposits in others, and always dangerous. The Dalol region sits more than 100 meters below sea level in one of the Earth's deepest land depressions, just east of the Erta Ale volcanic range. It is part of the Afar Triangle, a geological triple junction where three tectonic plates, the African, Arabian, and Somali, are pulling apart. This rift zone allows magma to press close to the surface, heating up briny groundwater and creating the hydrothermal cauldron that is Dalol. The result is a violent interaction between volcanic activity, mineral-rich waters, and the area's vast underground salt reserves. What you see on the surface, those vibrant pools, those steaming, colorful terraces, are the outward signs of this unseen turmoil. Dalol's temperature regularly exceeds 45 degrees Celsius (113 degrees Fahrenheit), and the heat, combined with the caustic atmosphere and complete lack of vegetation, has rendered the place essentially lifeless. It holds the record for the highest average annual temperature for any inhabited location on Earth, though no one resides directly within the hydrothermal zone. The nearby village of Hamdillah, populated by Afar people, lies at the edge of this forbidding land and serves as a launch point for expeditions into the infernal terrain. But even from afar, Dalol's visual intensity is staggering. One of the most famous sights is its acid pools, which glow a searing green, not from artificial lighting, but from high concentrations of iron, sulfur, and other minerals dissolved in the acidic water. These pools often reach pH levels near zero, making them comparable in acidity to battery acid. Bubbles constantly rise from the depths as sulfurous gases escape into the air, giving the pools the unsettling illusion of being alive. Around them, conical geysers and mushroom-shaped formations rise from the crust, formed by the rapid deposition of minerals such as potassium, magnesium, and iron salts. The scent is another unforgettable characteristic. The air in Dalol is thick with the acrid stench of sulfur and chlorine, burning the nostrils and throat with every breath. Wind carries acidic mists across the terrain, and prolonged exposure without proper protection, gas masks, eye shields, and skin coverings, can cause irritation, burns, or worse. These are not the hostile conditions of a distant planet, but of our own Earth, laid bare and raw in its most elemental fury. Yet amid the heat and toxicity, Dalol has attracted intense scientific curiosity. Biologists, chemists, and astrobiologists have ventured here to study extremophiles, microorganisms that can survive in high salinity, extreme heat, and low pH levels. But even among these life forms, Dalol remains elusive. Some recent studies suggest that it may actually be too extreme for life, with no confirmed microbial ecosystems in the most acidic and saline pools. This challenges long-held assumptions about the boundaries of life on Earth and offers critical insight into the search for life on other planets. Indeed, many astrobiologists consider Dalol to be an analogue for Martian and Venusian environments. The similarities between Dalol's mineral-rich hydrothermal systems and the suspected geothermal histories of other rocky planets make it an invaluable testing ground for instruments and theories intended for interplanetary missions. Robots and sensors designed for future Mars rovers have been tested here, learning to navigate its sharp mineral edges, sense chemical signatures, and detect biosigns in an environment as close to extra-Earth as one can find without leaving the ground. But beyond its scientific significance, Dalol is also a spiritual and symbolic location. For the local Afar people, the Danakil region is both a homeland and a sacred realm. They know its dangers intimately, mining salt blocks from nearby flats and guiding researchers or intrepid explorers into its alien core. They speak of the volcanoes, the shifting earth, and the breathing landscape with both reverence and caution. To them, Dalol is not just a marvel, it is a living entity with moods, tempers, and powers that must be respected. The vivid colors of Dalol, yellow sulfur, green acid, red iron, white salt, are not just visually mesmerizing but psychologically disorienting. Travelers often describe feeling as though they've wandered into a fever dream, or onto the set of a science fiction epic. The mind struggles to categorize what the eyes are seeing. No trees, no animals, no water to drink. Just heat, color, steam, and silence, broken only by the hiss of gas vents and the distant rumble of Earth's shifting plates. It is the sound of the planet breathing from beneath. Dalol's landscape is constantly changing. New vents open, old geysers collapse, pools dry up or overflow. Colors shift depending on chemical concentrations and sunlight angles. It is not a static postcard, but a dynamic canvas, a reminder that Earth is not a dead rock, but a seething, restless body with a life of its own. And in places like Dalol, that life is not gentle or nurturing, but volcanic, corrosive, and utterly indifferent to human comfort. Those who dare visit Dalol, usually via camel caravan or rugged 4x4 convoys, leave changed. Not just because of the visual surrealism, but because standing there, on that multicolored crust above boiling acid, one becomes acutely aware of how fragile the line is between our comfortable, habitable world and the chaotic forces just beneath. Dalol is Earth. Exposed, raw, primordial, and magnificently untamed. In the farthest reaches of South America, where the Andes disintegrate into jagged shards and icy winds carve the land with relentless precision, lies a place that seems almost mythic in its grandeur, the Torres del Paine in Chilean Patagonia. A symphony of elemental forces played out over millennia, this dramatic landscape of granite spires, turquoise lakes, glacial valleys, and vast steppe is not just a national park, it's a living testament to the raw power and staggering beauty of Earth's southern frontier. The park's namesake towers, the Torres, three colossal granite monoliths that pierce the sky like the fingers of some ancient god, are among the most iconic natural formations in the world, drawing adventurers, photographers, scientists, and seekers of the sublime to witness what many call the edge of the Earth. Located in the Mogollons region of southern Chile, Torres del Paine National Park spans over 1,800 square kilometers of protected wilderness. At its heart are the three Torres, or towers, the south, central, and north, which rise almost vertically from a base of darker sedimentary rock. These granite giants, formed by the intrusion and slow cooling of magma under older rock layers and later exposed by glacial erosion, offer a stark and awe-inspiring contrast against the blue-white glacier and grass-covered plains below. They are not simply mountains, they are geological totems, ancient and immovable. But the park is far more than just the Torres. To the west, the Cuernos del Paine, the Horns, rival the towers in grandeur, with layered rock formations that curve like horns and change color with the shifting light. Their composition is distinct, with dark sedimentary rock sitting atop lighter granite, creating a visual effect that is both surreal and sharply defined, as though they were designed by some cosmic artist with an eye for dramatic contrast. Surrounding these peaks are glacial lakes so vividly turquoise they seem digitally rendered. The color comes from rock flour, tiny particles of glacial sediment suspended in the water, reflecting light in brilliant shades of blue and green. Lakes such as Lago Pijo, Lago Nordenskjold, and Lago Grey mirror the mountains above them with crystalline clarity, creating a duality that doubles the surrealism. To sit beside one of these lakes, watching clouds drift over mirror-still waters while condors soar above, is to witness nature in a state of near perfection. And then there are the glacier, vast rivers of ice that spill down from the southern Patagonian ice field, the third largest freshwater reserve on Earth. Grey Glacier, one of the most accessible, snakes down from the highlands into Lago Grey in a jagged wall of towering blue ice. Visitors can approach it by boat or trek through ice fields for an up-close experience that feels utterly prehistoric. The glacier groans and creaks as it shifts, and on warmer days, massive chunks carve off with thunderous crashes, creating waves that ripple across the lake, a stark reminder that even the most formidable landscapes are constantly in motion. The ecosystem here is a rare and fragile one. Patagonia's steppe is home to guanacos, foxes, pumas, and rheas, flightless birds similar to ostriches. High above, Andean condors wheel in the thermals, their immense wingspans silhouetted against the clouds. The flora is adapted to harsh conditions, with resilient shrubs and windswept grasses dominating the lowlands, while twisted trees cling to life in sheltered valleys. The climate is famously unpredictable. Visitors can experience all 4 seasons in a single day, from sun to sleet to sudden blasts of snow or gale-force winds. For the indigenous Tehuelche and Kawesca peoples, this land was once sacred, inhabited by spirits and shaped by ancient legends. Though their presence was pushed to the margins with European colonization, their legacy endures in oral histories and archaeological remnants. Their understanding of the land, as something alive, powerful, and worthy of respect, aligns with the awe felt by modern-day visitors. Indeed, Torres del Paine is not a place to be conquered, but rather one to be humbly experienced. The name Paine, pronounced Paine, comes from the Tehuelche word for blue, referencing the dominant hues of the landscape. Whether it's the ice fields, the skies, or the lakes, blue is everywhere, not in one flat shade, but in a spectrum of electric cerulean, soft periwinkle, stormy indigo, and shimmering turquoise. The interplay of this color with the golden grasses, silver rock, and white glacier creates a visual harmony so sublime it borders on the spiritual. The park is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve and is tightly protected, though it welcomes tens of thousands of trekkers each year who come to complete one of its famed hiking circuits. The W Trek, named for the shape of the route, offers a week-long immersion into some of the park's most iconic vistas, including the Torres Viewpoint, the French Valley, and Grey Glacier. The longer O circuit loops the full Paine Massif, taking hikers deep into remote, wind-lashed highlands where few ever set foot. Whether via multi-day treks or short scenic walks, the journey here is never easy, but it is always worth it. For many, seeing the sunrise over the Torres is the defining moment of their Patagonian journey. Campers rise in darkness and hike by headlamp to the base of the towers, climbing through forest and over boulder fields to reach the viewpoint just in time for the first light of dawn. As the sun breaks the horizon, it sets the eastern faces of the towers ablaze in fiery reds and oranges, while the lake below glows like a melted opal. It is a spectacle not just of sight, but of soul, a reminder of Earth's capacity for grandeur, and our own small place within it. But Torres del Paine is more than scenery. It is also a critical barometer for climate change. Its glaciers are retreating, its ecosystems shifting. The frequency of wildfires, often sparked by careless visitors, has increased, threatening the delicate balance of this remote biome. Conservationists, local communities, and the Chilean government have joined efforts to preserve the park, but its future remains uncertain in a warming world. Still, for now, Torres del Paine endures, timeless, stoic, defiant. It remains a beacon for those who seek not comfort, but clarity, not leisure, but transformation. To enter this land is to step beyond civilization, beyond language, beyond even time, into a place where stone, wind, and water write the story of the world without need for words. And in this silence, framed by peaks that pierce the heavens and lakes that mirror eternity, one cannot help but listen. Jutting out from the rugged coast of Northern Ireland like the remnants of some ancient, otherworldly architecture, the Giant's Causeway is one of the most peculiar and hypnotic natural formations on Earth. At first glance, it appears as though some divine stonemason meticulously carved 40,000 hexagonal columns from black basalt and arranged them like stepping stones down into the roaring sea. These formations are so geometrically precise, so uniform, that even the skeptical mind strains to believe they are the product of nature alone. But indeed they are, forged not by myth or legend, but by the seething violence of prehistoric volcanic activity. And yet, wrapped in mist and legend, the Giant's Causeway is more than a geological marvel. It's a place where science and storytelling coalesce into something hauntingly magical. Located in County Antrim on the northeastern coast of Northern Ireland, the Giant's Causeway stretches like a fractured stairway into the Atlantic Ocean. The story of its origin, according to ancient Irish mythology, is inseparable from the landscape itself. Legend has it that the causeway was built by the Irish giant Fionn mac Cumaill, Finn McCool, who constructed it to cross the sea to Scotland and confront his rival, the Scottish giant Benandonna. Some versions of the tale claim that Fionn challenged Benandonna, but upon seeing the much larger Scotsman, Fionn fled back to Ireland. His quick-thinking wife disguised him as a baby, and when Benandonna saw the enormous infant, he assumed the father must be monstrously huge and fled back to Scotland, tearing up the causeway as he went. Though clearly fanciful, the story captures the fantastical spirit of the place, a landscape so extraordinary it demands a mythic explanation. In truth, the Giant's Causeway was formed about 50 to 60 million years ago during the Paleocene epoch, when the region was subject to intense volcanic activity. As molten basalt surged up through fissures in the Earth's crust, it formed vast lava plateaus. When this lava cooled, it contracted and cracked, forming the iconic hexagonal columns we see today. The regularity of the shapes, predominantly six-sided, though some have 4, 5, 7, or even 8 sides, is a natural result of the physics of cooling rock. As the lava cooled uniformly from the top and bottom, the stress patterns created polygonal columns, a process mirrored in the drying of mud or the cracking of ice on a pond. What makes the Giant's Causeway so captivating, however, is not just its origins or geometry, but the way it seems to bridge land and sea, myth and matter. The basalt formations begin on land and disappear into the ocean like a forgotten road, continuing underwater for kilometers. Across the sea, on the Isle of Staffa in Scotland, a similar formation known as Fingal's Cave exists, a poetic echo that adds weight to the old legend of the causeway being a literal bridge between nations. As you approach the site, the terrain shifts from grassy headlands and windblown cliffs to something more primeval. The columns stack and cluster in tightly packed arrays, rising and falling like the pipes of a cathedral organ. Some are waist-high and flat-topped, offering perfect platforms to step upon. Others rise like towering pillars or form cliff faces dozens of meters high. Over time, erosion and weather have sculpted individual formations that locals have named for their shapes. The Giant's Boot, a towering rock shaped like a shoe; the Organ, a cliffside with vertical columns that mimic church organ pipes; and the Chimney Stacks, slender towers that jut from the hillside like broken needles. The entire area is part of a dynamic, living landscape, one shaped not only by ancient fire but also by wind, rain, and sea. Salt spray lashes the rocks, algae and moss cling to damp crevices, and seabirds wheel overhead in the bracing Atlantic wind. In certain seasons, the tide pools between the columns glimmer with marine life, tiny crabs, starfish, and anemones, while the broader coastline provides a haven for seabirds like puffins, guillemots, and razorbills. The Giant's Causeway is also steeped in cultural and spiritual significance. For centuries, it has stirred poets, painters, and philosophers with its sublime geometry and ancient power. It became a subject of scientific study in the 18th century and was the source of much debate. Some early visitors believed the columns were man-made, while others suspected divine intervention. Today, it is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is managed by the National Trust, who preserve not just the physical environment but the cultural memory tied to it. Despite its popularity, it's one of Northern Ireland's top tourist attractions. The site maintains an atmosphere of solemn majesty, especially in the off-season or early morning hours, when mist clings to the shore and the sky is a canvas of shifting greys. The causeway feels like a portal to another world. Walking across the slick basalt stones, one can easily lose track of time, and indeed, of modernity. The sound of waves crashing against ancient columns, the smell of salt air, and the endless horizon conspire to transport you into a space between myth and geology, between memory and eternity. But like many natural wonders, the Giant's Causeway faces threats. Climate change brings fiercer storms and rising seas that erode the coast more quickly than before. Human foot traffic, though managed, still wears on the delicate formations. Conservation efforts remain strong, but the balance between access and preservation is delicate, a reminder that even ancient monuments, forged in fire and shaped by time, are not immune to the pressures of the present. Still, the Giant's Causeway stands, not merely as a destination or a geological curiosity, but as a monument to the unfathomable age and artistry of our planet. Whether seen as the handiwork of giants or the patient, precise work of volcanic forces, it offers a perspective that transcends the everyday. To stand there, with your feet on ancient lava and your gaze stretching to a misty horizon, is to glimpse something vast, something beyond human scale, beyond comprehension, and to remember, for a moment, the deep and secret rhythms of the earth. Beneath the lush, emerald hills of New Zealand's North Island, where sheep graze peacefully and the wind rustles through the ferns, lies a hidden world that feels plucked from the pages of a fantasy novel. The Waitomo glowworm caves are no ordinary limestone grotto. They are a subterranean universe, carved by water and time, and illuminated by one of nature's most delicate and surreal wonders, the glowworm. These tiny bioluminescent creatures transform the dark cavern ceilings into shimmering constellations, creating an effect so magical and serene that visitors often fall silent, overwhelmed by the stillness and the surreal beauty above them. It's as though the night sky itself has descended underground. Located in the Waitomo district of New Zealand's Waikato region, the caves were formed more than 30 million years ago during the Oligocene epoch, when the region was submerged beneath a shallow sea. Over eons, the accumulated remains of marine organisms such as coral, shells, and fish skeletons compressed into limestone, eventually forming thick layers of sedimentary rock. As tectonic forces lifted the land above sea level and rainwater began to seep through cracks, the acidic water slowly carved out a network of caves, passages, and sinkholes, some vast and vaulted, others narrow and sinuous. What makes Waitomo truly otherworldly, however, is the species that call it home, Arachnocampa luminosa, the glowworm. Despite the romantic name, glowworms are not worms at all but the larval stage of a species of fungus not endemic to New Zealand. These tiny creatures emit a pale blue-green bioluminescent light from a specialized organ in their tails. The glow is not a mere quirk of biology, it's a hunting mechanism. In the total darkness of the caves, the glowworm's light attracts flying insects, which become ensnared in the sticky silk threads the larvae suspend like fishing lines from the cave ceilings. The hungrier the glowworm, the brighter its glow, a haunting and efficient design of nature. Stepping into the Waitomo caves is like entering a sacred space. The air grows cool and damp. The light from the outside world fades quickly, replaced by the hush of dripping water echoing off ancient stone. Visitors often begin the journey on foot, exploring passages lined with stalactites and stalagmites, the former hanging like icicles from the ceiling, the latter rising like frozen spears from the cave floor. Each is the product of millennia of mineral-rich water dripping slowly, depositing layer upon layer of calcite. Over time, some have fused into columns, others into twisted sculptures with names like the cathedral, the pipe organ, and the Tomo, a 16-meter vertical sinkhole. But the true enchantment begins when you board a small, silent boat and drift into the cave's most famous chamber, the glowworm grotto. Here, all sources of artificial light are extinguished, and the silence is total, save for the gentle lapping of water and the distant plink of a falling droplet. Overhead, thousands of glowworms radiate their ghostly light. The effect is so surreal that it's easy to believe you've passed through some veil in space and time. The glowworms do not twinkle. Their light is constant, steady, and gently pulsing. Their numbers are so vast, and their glow so synchronized, that the ceiling resembles the Milky Way in all its glory. It's a universe reversed, a cosmos within the Earth. The cultural significance of the Waitomo caves is equally profound. The word Waitomo itself is derived from Maori, Wai meaning water and Tomo meaning sinkhole or shaft. Local Maori tribes knew of the caves long before Western discovery and considered them part of the sacred natural world. In 1887, local Maori chief Tain Tinarau, alongside English surveyor Fred Mace, conducted the first documented exploration of the caves using a makeshift raft and candlelight. Tinarau's descendants remain deeply involved in the stewardship and tourism of the caves today, ensuring that the site is preserved with respect for both its ecological delicacy and cultural heritage. Conservation is a major priority. The glowworm population is extremely sensitive to environmental changes. Temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide levels, and even noise can affect their health and behavior. Over-tourism, once a threat, has been mitigated through strict visitor caps, guided tours, and extensive monitoring. Scientists and caretakers work constantly to ensure that the delicate balance between access and preservation is maintained. Beyond the main cave, the Waitomo region is riddled with other spectacular underground systems. Ruakuri Cave, for instance, offers an even more immersive experience with its spiraling walkway, underground rivers, and dramatic rock formations. Aranui Cave, accessible only by foot, is a dry cave filled with stunning stalactites and ancient fossil deposits. These neighboring caves offer variations of the same ancient geological artistry, but none rival the glowworm grotto for sheer ethereal beauty. Interestingly, the glowworm spectacle is seasonal and varies with natural cycles. During mating season, glowworms briefly enter their adult form, winged, non-glowing, and tragically short-lived. Within days, they die after reproduction, ensuring the next generation will once again illuminate the darkness. This brief, luminous life cycle serves as a poetic reminder of the transient beauty of all things, a spark in the void, a constellation in the dark. Visitors leave the caves transformed. The experience defies modernity, technology, and noise. In that floating boat, with only silence and glow as companions, the world narrows to a singular moment of awe. It's as if the Earth, in its oldest and most secret places, reveals a hidden heartbeat, pulsing with quiet life and light, waiting to be witnessed by those willing to descend into darkness. And perhaps that's the real magic of the Waitomo glowworm caves. Not merely that they exist, but that they remind us of the unseen wonders still hidden beneath our feet, ancient, fragile, luminous threads connecting us to a planet still full of mystery and grace. This video is for educational or entertainment purposes only, and information provided in the video may be incorrect. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to the channel and like the video.